Good afternoon and welcome to Midday Report here on TVP World. I'm your host, Marie Cato. Ahead of Friday's highly anticipated meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin in Alaska, the U.S. president will join a Ukraine-focused video call with European leaders and Volodymyr Zelenskyy on Wednesday. They hope to persuade the U.S. president not to sell out Ukraine in any potential peace deal. Our correspondent Alex Cadier has this report from Kyiv.
Well, President Zelenskyy is now in Berlin. He's just had a meeting with Friedrich Merz, the German Chancellor, who has also convened a call of those coalition of the willing partners. They include Italy, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, Poland, of course, and leaders from the European Union. That call should be starting shortly. Now, the objective, of course, is to coordinate the Ukrainian and European position to make sure that they are speaking of one voice with one set of objectives, namely to make sure that the United States does not sell Ukraine down the river, does not ignore European security concerns when it comes to any peace outcome for Russia's invasion of Ukraine, coordinating, of course, that European position ahead of a call with Vice President J.D. Vance and, crucially, with President Donald Trump of the United States to make sure that at least they have heard the European concerns, the Ukrainian position going into that meeting in Alaska between President Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. There was a fear, according to European diplomats speaking to the Reuters news agency, that there was a risk Donald Trump could just strike a deal above the heads of the Ukrainians, above the heads of the Europeans who see this as an issue of European security. Now, some expectation management from the White House. Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, saying that the meeting with Vladimir Putin will be a listening exercise for the US, perhaps implying that it is not the moment for a deal to be struck, but there is clearly concern in Europe that that may happen. It may happen without them. Hence the coordination efforts with President Zelenskyy, hence this expression of a clear European position. The question, of course, will Donald Trump listen? In Kyiv, I'm Alex Cadier for TVP World.
Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk also intends to join Wednesday's video conference between U.S. President Donald Trump and European leaders. The news was confirmed by the Polish government spokesperson Adam Szłapka.
Szłapka said Poland firmly opposes any US-Russia talks on Ukraine that exclude Kyiv. He emphasized that Europe must act in solidarity and be directly involved in all discussions affecting the region. According to European Commission spokesperson Arianna Podesta, the initiative to talk with Trump was brought forward by German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. The discussions will also include Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. The EU has also announced it will push for security guarantees for Ukraine, including Kyiv's ability to defend itself in the future.
Tensions are rising ahead of the US-Russia summit in Alaska. Moscow is dismissing European calls for consultation and accuses the EU of undermining peace efforts. Russia's foreign ministry spokesperson said European demands for talks ahead of the US-Russia summit are politically and practically irrelevant. He claimed that while the EU publicly supports diplomacy, it is in fact sabotaging efforts to resolve the war in Ukraine. The comments come just hours before a video conference organized by Germany, bringing together leaders from several European countries, the EU and NATO. Donald Trump's meeting with Vladimir Putin in Anchorage, Alaska on Friday will reportedly take place without any American or Russia experts on hand to advise the president. The Financial Times reports that policymakers from the U.S. National Security Council, who would normally brief the president on key issues, have been either sidelined or forced out due to recent government streamlining. Experts told the FT that Putin is a skilled negotiator. The paper added that Trump has prioritized loyalty over experience, meaning he will have no Russia or Ukraine experts at his side to advise against being caught out by Putin. The Trump-Putin Alaska summit is a concession to Russia, and it may result in Ukraine and Europe picking up the pieces after a Washington-Moscow agreement. That's according to David Dunn, a professor of international politics from the University of Birmingham, who recently spoke to TVP World.
The very fact that this meeting is taking place at all is a huge concession to Vladimir Putin. And the fact that it's being hosted in the United States and the fact that it's happening bilaterally without there being any ceasefire first are all huge concessions. And we know, despite the noises coming out of the White House, that Trump is not a good listener. So what we have is an impetuous, a not particularly smart negotiator in the form of Trump, and someone who was also motivated primarily by the idea of actually bringing the conflict to an end without thinking about the long-term needs for European security in particular. It's to be welcomed that he's saying he's now prepared to listen, and that reflects the fact that the Europeans have put a huge amount of pressure on the American sides to actually try and get them to be educated about the concerns and risks that are at stake in this negotiation. But there still remains that huge degree of trepidation as to what the possibilities are that follow from that, because the fear is that the Americans and the Russians make an agreement, and the Ukrainians and the Europeans are forced to pick up the pieces.
Ukraine's general staff reported that over the last 24 hours, Russian and Ukrainian forces clashed 165 times. At least one person was killed in the Kherson region. The remains of a 61-year-old woman were found under the rubble of a residential building in the Kherson region after a Russian strike destroyed the structure. The local governor took to Telegram to report that 4 other people were wounded in the attack on the area. Images shared from the Dnipropetrovsk show damaged and destroyed residential buildings, with emergency services working to extinguish fires and clear debris. Ukraine's Air Force reported that overnight, Moscow's forces used 49 kamikaze drones and 2 ballistic missiles. Ukrainian forces managed to shoot down both missiles and 32 of the drones. Alarming reports from Ukraine say smoke has been spotted in the cargo port of the Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant.
Ukraine's energy ministry warned that any provocations or military activity in the area could trigger, quote, unpredictable and catastrophic consequences for the entire continent. Ukrainian authorities are working to determine the exact location, the source of the smoke, and possible consequences of the situation. At the same time, an independent Ukrainian news outlet, Mediazona, in collaboration with the BBC Russian service, released a report confirming the identities of over 120,000 Russian military personnel killed in Ukraine. The report covers the period of February 24, 2022 to July 31, 2025. Since it was last updated, more than 2,300 additional Russian military personnel have been confirmed killed as Russia wages its war of terror on Ukraine.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says Russia wants Ukraine to cede the entire Donetsk region in exchange for pulling back from other areas. We spoke with Piotr Kuszuvara, president of the UA Future Foundation, to understand why Donetsk holds such strategic importance for Russia.
Russia is offering and trading with Ukrainian territories for Ukrainian territories. They are offering some occupied territories for other occupied territories. So this is absolutely ridiculous situation. Donbas is very important for Russia because it's full of the underground resources, lithium, for example. There is an oil, there is an gold, there is a lot of ground resources, very rich, of coal, for example, of other metals. So this ground can help Russia to fight in future.
A Pole has been arrested in Estonia after he tried to cross the Narva River into Russia to join Moscow's war efforts against Ukraine. The man was detained last week, but the Estonian court decided on his arrest on Wednesday. The 49-year-old reportedly traveled to Estonia from Serbia and tried to cross the Narva River that serves as the Estonian-Russian border on an inflatable mattress. Estonian authorities said the man was in possession of objects that would suggest he had the intention to join the Russian army, but they did not provide any details as for what these items were. At the same time, Tallinn has expelled a Russian diplomat for allegedly interfering in the country's interior affairs. According to the Estonian Foreign Ministry, the diplomat was actively trying to influence Estonia's constitutional order and judicial system while creating and deepening social divides. Poland's economy is gaining momentum. New data shows GDP growth has accelerated in the second quarter of this year, driven by strong consumer spending and public investment. Poland's economy grew by 3.4% in the second quarter of 2025 compared to the same time last year, slightly above the 3.2% growth seen in the first quarter. Experts say this is a healthy sign, mostly thanks to people spending more money and the government investing in public projects. Some sectors like factories and construction showed little growth, and selling goods abroad may have actually impacted the numbers negatively to some small extent. Still, economists expect the economy to remain strong this year and grow even faster in 2026. China's foreign ministry has confirmed that Beijing has completely cut ties with Czech President Petr Pavel. This comes after the Czech leader met with Dalai Lama. The Czech foreign minister stressed that Pavel's visit with the Buddhist leader was of personal nature and Beijing should be treated as such. However, despite Chinese media reporting on the matter, Chinese authorities remain adamant the visit could prove harmful to China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The Czech president reportedly traveled to India while returning from a working trip to Japan to personally wish the Dalai Lama a happy birthday, as the spiritual leader recently turned 90. The Dalai Lama resides in the Himalayas, where he fled in 1959 from China. Beijing's communist authorities view him as a separatist agent. China has sanctioned 2 European Union banks in retaliation for the bloc's 18th sanctions package against Russia. The package also targeted certain Chinese entities.
The EU's 18th sanction package on Russia targets the energy, banking, and military sectors. It was also the first package to include Chinese businesses on the restriction list, as Beijing has been aiding Moscow's war efforts. Chinese trade officials accused the European Union of violating international law and disregarding Chinese interests. The 2 European banks affected by China's sanctions are from Lithuania. Tensions between Beijing and Vilnius have been on the rise, as the Eastern European country has been a vocal critic of China and even faced economic sanctions imposed from Beijing after attempting to tighten relations with Taiwan.
Countries in southern Europe are battling wildfires as a heatwave engulfs the region. In Spain, 2 people, one of them a volunteer firefighter, have died from the burns they sustained. In Greece, mass evacuations have been carried out as emergency crews tackle around 150 fires.
Dramatic video footage shows the moment flames engulfed a cement factory near the city of Patras in western Greece. Firefighters were shocked by the speed of the blaze, which consumed an industrial zone.
It looks like doomsday. We came from Athens with our volunteer association. We can't do anything more. May God help us all and help the people here.
Wildfires have forced evacuations across the region, including 2 tourist islands, Chios and Zakynthos. Authorities say around 5,000 firefighters and 33 aircraft were deployed at first light. In Spain, there are similar scenes, flames stoked by winds after months of little or no rain. Authorities say at least 2 people died, one of them a volunteer, both of them succumbing to severe burns. In eastern Serbia, a blaze threatened homes in the town of Kostol, but crews assisted by helicopters managed to quench the flames. In Turkey, firefighters battled to contain a blaze raging through woodlands near the western province of Izmir. A punishing heatwave is pushing temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius in many parts of southern Europe. Authorities are bracing for further wildfires.
Who says sunbathing is just for humans? A video of 80 grey seals basking on the Polish beach in Mikoszewo has taken the internet by storm. Seeing such a large group of these mammals in one place on the Baltic Sea is rare, making it all the more apparent why the video generated over 1 million views. Grey seals can be spotted several times a year in Mikoszewo, located at the mouth of the Vistula River in the Pomeranian region. Their favorite place to rest is the northeastern part of the Sobieszewska Island, or more precisely, at the area near the beach in Mikoszewo. With a population of over 40,000, grey seals are one of the 3 most numerous seal species in the Baltic Sea. And that concludes Midday Report. Thank you so much for being with us, and stay tuned for more on TVP World. Goodbye.